Alright guys, today we're going to be looking at the measures we did not go over in the last video, specifically measure 10, or 9, 10, 12, and 16, and that will finish off the first page. And then once you've gone through this video, I'll also post a recording of the entire first page for reference for you. Okay, so let's start with the very last measure, because that's going to involve a quarter note triplet. So what I want to do is I'm going to play the last line for you, measure 15 and 16, and I want you to hear how the eighth note triplet and the quarter note triplet work together. And actually it's three sets of triplets. There's a 16th note triplet, eighth note triplet, and then quarter note triplet. And like I said in the last video, whenever you do a triplet, that next level up, that kind of triplet is nested within the triplet you're playing. So when you go from 16th note triplets to eighth note triplets, you basically play on every other note. Same thing's going to happen when that bleeds into measure 16 and you go to that quarter note triplet. It's going to be every other note of the eighth note triplet. I'll kind of show you that with stick clicks here. So I'm just playing every other note and thinking one, leap, la, like that. Okay? So the last line. Okay, now that sounds kind of weird with the metronome. Let me do it without the metronome, because all this is kind of going over the beat. It sounds a little bit weird. Let me do it without the metronome now. 2, ready, and You see how the rest of that measure falls right in line with the quarter note triplet? Okay, basically the two 16th note triplets take the place of one of the quarter note triplets, and then the two eighth notes kind of do the same thing. So you have flam, 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 digga 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 pop pop boom. Okay, so you kind of keep that quarter note triplet feel throughout. Here's that last line again. Triplet, 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 triplet. And I forgot the flam that time. Okay, one more time. So, and again, you can hear how it's kind of weird with the metronome. When you play quarter note triplets, and this, when we're thinking of the eighth note as the beat, you're only playing on the beat like once every third note on these triplets. Okay? So that's measure 16. That one might take you a little time to figure out. Just remember, 16, you can think of the whole thing as being in the form of that quarter note triplet. Okay? So let's now look at measures 9 and 10. Okay? Because there's a concept in here we need to talk about. Most rolls we see are called tied rolls. Okay? There'll be that curved line coming out of the roll that attaches to the note immediately after the roll. Okay? So you end with a tap or an accent sometimes. Okay, for instance, measure 6. Look at measure 6. Okay, so there's a tie, and technically it's not a tie. It's because if it was a tie, we wouldn't play that note. We call them tied rolls, but it's one of those misnomers in percussion. It's actually a slur. Okay, a slur means to connect. So in measure 6, the roll is tied or slurred to the next beat. Okay, so that roll goes all the way up to the next note, and then you start playing rhythms on the next note. If you look at measure 9 and 10, both of those rolls are missing slurs. Okay, so what that means is those rolls are not going to go all the way up until the notes after them. Okay, you're going to have to put some kind of separation in there. Okay, and it's kind of a case-by-case thing where you as the performer have to figure out exactly how many buzz strokes you're going to put in there. Okay. For this one, I'm going to go ahead and tell you we're going to continue to subdivide in 16th note triplets. Okay. So just the rhythm. I'm not going to play the roll. Just the rhythm in measure 9. We have. We also have 2 rolls tied together. So that's one long roll. You have 1 take 2 take 1 take 2 flam. So again, look at the music. That bass rhythm is 1 take 2 take 1 take 2 flam. Okay. So I've got got to roll for beats 2 and 3, and then I got to take a little bit of space and come back in on the te for the end of the measure. So what I'm going to do is roll in triplets. Let me do it just like we have been before. I'm going to do it with the skeleton now. 1 te, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, te, 1 te, 2, flam. 1 te, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, te, 1 te, 2, flam. Okay? So if I do that with the roll, what you're going to hear, you heard the little space in the rhythm. Okay? That space is going to be a little break after the roll. 1 te, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, te, 1 te, 2, flam. Again. 1 te, 2 lolly, 3 lolly, te, 1 te, 2, flam. And if you notice, I did not tap the end of the roll. I ended with the buzz stroke. Okay? We want untied rolls to have an unfinished sound to them. They don't have a clear ending point. Okay? They end with a z sound. Okay? Listen to it again. Okay? So they've got kind of an unreleased feel. Okay? It's an untied roll. The next measure, measure 10, is if you took all the 16ths in measure 9 and made them 30 seconds, it would be exactly the same. Okay? So measure 10 is 30 seconds now, but the roll remains the same. Okay? Listen to that again. Notice the rolls is still that. Okay? Here's measure 10 again. Okay? Now, at the end there, in the measure 10, we have what we call a 4-stroke rough. Okay? When we say rough, we generally mean that. Okay? A flam with a bounced grace note. Okay? Another way to say that would be a 3-stroke rough. But when we say rough, we assume it's a 3-stroke rough. This one has an extra grace note. Okay? So this is a 4-stroke rough. Pretty common on snare drum literature. So this is something you need to know how to do. So there's a couple different things you can do. You can do a puttada, right, left, right. Okay, if you're comfortable with that. Either way, it's got to be quick. Okay, you can do a dudapa, which is going to be right, left, right. That one is a little bit quicker motion in the right hand. Okay, so that's one way to do it. And then the last way is you can single stroke it. And I guess you could do right hand lead or left hand lead. Okay, but you can single stroke it really quick. Right, left. That's the one I usually default to, but you should do whichever one sounds the best, okay? Whichever one produces 3 clear, quick grace notes and then a primary note. So whether that's puttada, dudapa, or single stroke. And you could also single stroke off the left. Okay, I'm not as good at that one. I tend to do the single stroke method. But you try all 3 or all 4. Okay, you try all those and figure out which one works best. It really doesn't matter, okay, as long as it sounds good. That should be the measure of which one you choose to go with, is you have practiced all 4, and you go, okay, this is the one that I think sounds the best, okay? So, let's hear measure 10 now with that 4-stroke rough at the end, now that we know what it is. Okay? So with a 4-stroke rough, that also means you have to start early. Okay, you have to start that rough a little ahead of the beat so that you land on the beat in time. So there's less space in there for you to think about what's coming next. Okay, so listen to the similarity in lines measures 9 and 10. Listen to how similar they are. 2, ready, and. Okay, so it's kind of like a variation on a theme there. Okay, kind of the same idea. So that's measure 9 and 10. We've covered measure 16. The last one we're going to look at in this video is measure 12. Okay, so in measure 12, we start with 2 16ths, 1 te, and then we have 30-second note triplets. Okay, so not really a spectacular way to count this, but it's going to be 1 te, 2 ta, or sorry, yeah, 1 te, 2 te. 1 te, 2 te, 3 te, 4 te. Da da, diggity ga, da da, diggity ga, da diggity ga, da diggity ga. Each one of those triplets is going to take up the space of 1/16th note, or half a beat. So not incredibly fast. I'm still at 110 here. Okay, now let's add to that the quarter note triplet. And if we remember our remove a beam philosophy, okay, when we get to that quarter note triplet, it's really going to be like a half note triplet, which is super slow. Okay, so I'm going to do just the skeleton of the roll, just to show you. Triplet. So notice that when I was playing a half note triplet, I was thinking a quarter note triplet and playing on every note. That's why you heard me say triplet, triplet. Listen to it again. Triplet, triplet. And then there is no downbeat in measure 13. That's why you don't hear me playing beat 1. Okay? So, one more time. That measure without the roll, because we need to learn the skeleton before we even think about trying to play the roll. And there's our downbeat. Okay? Now, those 3 rolls that are in that quarter note triplet are untied. How many buds? Now, we can't just say we're going to do 16th note triplets because it kind of doesn't work out because these rolls are in awkward places. They don't start on downbeats or upbeats. So, what we're going to do is try to figure out how many buzz strokes each one of those is going to be, and that will allow us to create a little separation. So, I'm going to try 4. Okay, that was with 4 buzzes. Downbeat. Okay, so try it with 3. Okay, 4 probably sounds better right now. I think once you get up to tempo, it's probably going to be more like 3, like if you're here. Okay, they're pretty quick. As long as you're creating space, and most importantly, as long as you are maintaining the rhythm of what you're doing there, so as long as you're maintaining that quarter note triplet, okay, you don't want to get lost in the counting on the roll. You want to be thinking triplet, triplet. So I think I'm going to stick to 4 for right now. Okay, so that's all the new material. Okay, we covered measure 9 and 10, untied rolls. We covered the 4-stroke rough. Okay, we covered in measure, did I say that right? Yeah, measure 12, we covered those 30-second note triplets, okay, and then the untied half-note triplet rolls. And then in measure 16, we covered that quarter note triplet feel that lasts throughout the measure, okay? So once you got a handle on those individually, start putting the whole thing back together. Remember, there's some measures from the last video we have not gone over because all the information is on the video in other measures, okay? So the next video you see will be a full recording of the first page at 8th note equals 110.